What is up, LEGO fans? It's Xander back from the studio, and we're doing another custom mock showcase. I did a sneak peek a while back, showing you a tiny bit of the IG-2000. This is the video in its full length, and we're going to be taking a full in-depth look at it. This is my custom design of it, so it might not be the most accurate, but it's my take on it, and I'm proud of it. So, we'll go ahead and let's take a look. So the one thing I'll get out of the way right now is this display stand. It's the exact same as all of the other bounty hunter ships that I've done. So it doesn't, we're not going to get into this until it's in its flight mode. So look forward to that. We'll go ahead and take a look at the only figure you get with this. Well, this is not an actual set, but the only figure I included is IG-88 himself, because this is his own ship. And he's pretty straightforward. He's using a battle droid part. He's using mostly battle droid pieces with a stud shooter and a blaster on his back. The only truly unique part about him is this 1x1 cylinder cone with a special print on it showing his face, essentially. And this figure comes from the Bounty Hunter Speeder Bike Battle Pack. Very good figure. Highly recommend getting that set. Not just for IG-88, but for the other characters included. So, yep, IG-88, we don't need to spend too much time on him. Here's the IG-2000 in all of its glory. It's very sleek, very aerodynamic, and it's very low to the ground. It's got some curves and shapes to it. And this ship in Star Wars Legends was a modified Aggressor Assault-class Starfighter. So it's mainly a starfighter. It's not as big as a starship, so it doesn't have the huge interior capabilities and none of the special functions that a starship usually has. So the IG-2000, when I designed it, I had to make it smaller. Smaller than usual because it's a starfighter. It doesn't need to be terribly huge, and it has some features that are unique to this mock, specifically the single ion engine at the back. It only has a single ion engine. And this ship was built and designed by, and flown by IG-88. So this is all his design. It wasn't manufactured by any other corporation. It was simply him and his capabilities. And it's got several weird things, such as these vents. There's an overload of vents up here. We just got several weird angles like these wings here. We've got some tractor beam projectors here at the front. Kind of see those. The ship has a decent amount of weapons. It's got two laser cannons on each side of the wings here. And we've got two ion cannons right here, which are located here. So it's got a few decent weapons. It's also got a highly advanced cloaking device, at least my version does. And it can turn invisible. It's got a class 0.5 hyperdrive, and so it's pretty strong. This IG-88 has taken this thing to several lengths which a human would not dare, because this is not built for a human. This was built for a droid, so he can withstand the pressures of space and all the nauseating turns and dives that normal humans couldn't withstand. And his skills as a pilot are unmatched, only matched by Boba Fett, of course. Fun fact for you, this ship, the IG-2000, was one of the few starships in the galaxy that could actually, one of the few starfighters in the galaxy that could actually withstand Slave One's power, the power of its weapons, at least, well, however briefly. Most of these models actually end up getting destroyed in Star Wars Legends, which is a bit unfortunate. But I'm glad that I was able to build this version, and it takes several designs from several different builders online and several different pictures of the IG-2000. You can see some different asymmetrical color designs, like on the back here we got light gray and dark gray. Different things like these are, I don't know if you can see, but these are kind of switched. The colors are different. We got some greebling details on the top of the body here. It's kind of chunky in the back, and it's kind of more slims down to the front. We've got some lights here. you know, in case IG-88 needs to see in the dark. Got some details right here. You can kind of see inside the cockpit, but it's mostly meant to. I designed this similar to the Houndstooth's cockpit. I designed this cockpit specifically so you couldn't see who is piloting it, so it makes it even more mysterious and ambiguous as to who's actually flying this thing. And the first of its features is actually its landing gear. So if you take a look at the bottom of the ship here, you can see that there's some studs holding it up, and that those are literally the only thing holding this up from being completely on the ground. So if we take the ship here, we move it actually under, you can take a look at the underside. It's kind of minimalist. There's not too much to see here. But if you're wondering what these studs are for, they're to keep the ship upright, you know, when it lands. But actually, if you're wondering what these are, this is actually the secondary landing gear that IG-88 installed to make the ship more, if he wants the ship to be above the ground a little bit more, that is what that's for. We can go ahead and take, it kind of just, it's retractable. So they can move up and down and retract. So that's what that looks like. And I'm gonna go ahead and put it onto the surface here. So you can see now the IG-2000 is a little bit more above the ground. Gives it a little bit of a different look, I think. And some other interesting features are some of the greebling details like these, and some of these things. You can't really see in between the wings there, because the wings are kind of, they're in their retracting mode, right? They're in their retracted mode right now. That's what it looks like when it's head on. And I had a lot of fun designing all these curves, like these different curves that go in here, and making the wings stable and connected here. And another one of the interesting features about this MOC in particular, this is one of the only starfighters that I've actually, the only one of my ships that I've glued. So some of the pieces are actually glued. It's very hard to tell, but in these wings pieces specifically, these in between here, these are glued. You might be able to see a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's hidden. And these pieces right here are also glued. So these that hold the wings together, because they just kept falling off constantly. But now, as you'll see, as I swoosh it around, the wings don't fall off at all. I'll go ahead and demonstrate a little bit of swooshability with this thing. This thing can really take a lot of damage, kind of a lot of beating. And we'll go ahead and move into one of the second features, which is actually the wings. You can see they're in their retracted mode. They're kind of pushed back and locked into place. Well, of course, if you notice the hinges here, the wings can move. They're meant to be in a more dynamic pose when the IG-2000 is taking off and it's in its flight mode. Well, all you have to do is just angle these and some of these. It's kind of a specific angle that I wanted to get. So that's what it looks like when it's like actually flying. So it kind of makes it look very different. And you can now see the pieces that I used to connect these to the main body. So they are glued and they're not coming off whatsoever. And the pieces right here are very unique. They're Technic pieces. Got some various different Technic pieces going on in here. Give you some of the details. Kind of see the wings right here. I'll give you a little bit of a look at those. They're kind of simple. They're somewhat meant to be. And it gives the ship a very dynamic look that makes it stand out from other starfighters in the galaxy. And this is one of the fastest vessels in the galaxy. It's one of the most unique and most strange and it is very strange and bizarre looking. It's definitely suited for a droid. And there's another thing that you could do. You can make the wings even more out. You can make the wings spread out even more. So that's what it looks like. And while the wings are out here like this, we might as well take a look at the ship in its flight mode when it's on the stand. I'm gonna take this, put this in here. And now, here is the ship when it is flying. So this is what it looks like. Just imagine the stand's not there. But that's what it looks like when it's flying. It looks very dynamic and aerodynamic and very sleek. Once again, it looks a little bit futuristic, but you can see some of the different colors on this are rusting. Some of the discoloration of the pieces helped to give it a lot of rusted detail, which I think it really helps add to the look of this thing. And the cockpit is very nice. The cockpit piece, we'll go ahead and take this off its stand. The cockpit piece is actually an old 80s piece that was used for the classic space sets. I had one of those. I actually have a couple of those. And it worked because in the universe, the IG-2000 had some blue colors, and I didn't really have any blue on here on the top, so I decided to make the whole cockpit blue. And it really looks really good, I think. Adds a nice little pop of color to this thing. And you'll notice that I retracted the landing gear. That's what that looks like when it's retracted. So it almost is out of view, except for these on the sides. So again, it's resting on the 4 studs there. So it makes it look very low to the ground. And we'll go ahead and get into the other features, which are the first of which of the really interesting features is the cockpit here. And this can fit IG-88. Go ahead and lift off. This whole thing can either lift off or can come off entirely. And if you look inside the cockpit, it's kind of boring. It's very bland. That's what it's designed to be. And IG-88 can, of course, fit in here. I won't put him in here, but you can kind of get an idea of what he's supposed to look like when he's in there. That's what he would look like if he's in there. So his feet just kind of attach here, and he kind of leans back. Now, because IG-88, the minifigure, his head is so tall, it was somewhat of a challenge to design the cockpit specifically because his tall stature was somewhat of an issue when designing this because he is just so tall, and it ended up working pretty well. And his head barely goes right to here, so if his head would have been any taller, it probably wouldn't have worked, but because the figure is how he is designed how he is, it works perfectly with this vessel. So that was the cockpit. Very simple, nothing really too much to discuss. There's no real controls because IG-88 is once he's sat in here, he just can pilot the whole thing without really any controls of any kind. And unlike Bosk, which he has to have actual controls, but this ship doesn't need it because it's piloted by a droid. So, yep, kind of a minimalist design. It's very cool design. And this piece, when you put IG-88 in, I usually take this piece off and then clip him in, and then stick it back on. So, yep, that's the cockpit there. I'll go ahead and put the cockpit back on. And it just closes like so, makes a wonderful looking cockpit. And normally that would be it, that would be the end pretty much. But you may be wondering why this part is slightly raised up. And I'll go ahead and reveal some of the secret. One of the secrets is there's actually a trapdoor piece right here. You can probably see it's kind of the discolored, older gray color. And I had several of those, I think 4 or 5, and I used them on the other bounty hunting ships that I have, except Slave 1, which is actually an official LEGO set. But I used those pieces in very interesting ways. On the Houndstooth, I used it as the kind of the middle of the kind of the bridge between the 2 decks. I used it to get as a way for Boss to get up and down in between the Houndstooth. And for the IG-2000, I designed it so it looks like there's no detail here. It looks like it's just, there's nothing in here. Well, you might be able to tell that this thing can actually open up. In fact, I have interiors for all of the bounty hunting ships, and this is no exception. Well, one of the biggest issues, design-wise and challenge-wise, was I had to design an interior for the IG-2000, which, of course, is a smaller ship. In fact, it's very small compared to Slave 1 and other ships like that, and like the Houndstooth and things like that. So I had to design it in a way that it went with the design, but it didn't break apart any of the details. So you can see it just kind of flows from the cockpit. All the detail is kind of on the back here. And there is a way to get access to this. There's behind the engine, on top of the engine, there's a flat tile. And this thing is attached with 2 studs right here. And now you can see it's coming off. This whole thing, this whole sub-assembly can just remove itself, just come off. And this is the trapdoor piece I was talking about. Pretty straightforward. And it can open if you're wondering, but not very much. And you can see all the detail that was on there. So that's what that looks like, and it leaves kind of a hole. This is where the interior is, so to speak. It's not too much of an interior. It's kind of just a little section. And no, there's not too much going on here. We've got some floor, some light gray stuff going on down there. We've got a blaster pistol right here, one of IG-88's many weapons. We've got several control buttons, some little details, some control consoles. And we got a clip for one of his weapons. And this is actually a charging station. So if you're wondering what this is actually when IG-88 needs a power recharge or he's offline. He goes back here and he just lays down, and it works pretty well. So that's what that's what that does. Pretty simple sub-assembly. And it just tucks away into the corner here. And we've got a stickered piece showing the various files of the other bounty hunters that IG-88's his rivals, including Boba Fett. So all the other bounty hunters that are you know, around the galaxy looking for jobs and stuff. That's what that piece is supposed to represent. So you have a little detail for it. There's some little grill pattern right here. So there's not too much, again, to this section. It's kind of just a weapons storage and just a place to store things. And IG-88 can fit back here, if you're wondering. He can fit back here, but not like this. But it's a very tight fit, and it's supposed to be because this is a Starfighter. So Starfighters usually don't have interiors, but I managed to fit one in here. And here in the back here, this is where the engine is and kind of spin. This is the flat tile I was talking about in black. So there's a bunch of grill patterns, a bunch of grill details. And, I mean, there's not too much to this compared to Houndstooth, which has the biggest interior out of all the ships. This is easily the smallest interior. Doesn't have too much going on, but I wanted to make an interior for this regardless of its size. I think it worked out really well. And you can see some of the building of the ship, some of the things holding it up, like the cockpit and some of the technic pieces and structures in there. So when I designed it, I wanted this piece, the sub-assembly, the trapdoor piece, to look like it was just on there for detail and nothing else. And if you're wondering what the 2 studs are to attach this to, there they are right there, that piece. And it's just attached by 2 studs, so you can just pop it on and pop it off whenever you choose. And it kind of slides in. These pieces, these slow pieces kind of go down here. Kind of just goes down in there, and it's, you know, it's attached. It works really well, and you can still see some stuff in there. And it just works perfectly. Once you put it on there, it's like it's not there. It's like there's no interior at all. And some last things here, some curves and slopes I like to add, especially these back. I'd like to talk about these back pieces there. They were fun to design, these back structures, these slopes. Especially the engine area was fun to design. All these little details on the top were fun to design. The cockpit was kind of fun to attach. The wings especially were the biggest challenge in designing this, especially because they had to move and stuff, and especially when they, you know, when they retract into the main body of the ship. This is what it would look like when this is what it looks like when the wings are completely folded in and retracted. And I mean, that's pretty much all for the IG-2000. It's a pretty simple ship. It's a very deadly starfighter. One of the more fun ships I've designed. I designed it in about 3.5 days, so it was actually one of my quickest builds. You know, when I designed it, one of my favorite custom MOCs. I think it's probably in my top 5 favorites that I've built and designed. It's just so aggressive looking. And it's, again, it's an Aggressor Assault-class Starfighter, so one of the more lesser-known vehicles in the Star Wars galaxy, but definitely one of the more interesting and unique ones for sure. So this is my take on the IG-2000. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did enjoy, go ahead and give it a like for IG-88 or the Bounty Hunters. I've got the rest of the ships up there. We've got Dengar's ship right there. We've got the Zuckuss and Forlom's ship. And the other ones, I made a video on the Houndstooth not too recently, or pretty recently. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty much all for this. And hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. And if you liked this video, go and give it a like. We'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.